of course, the most important thing we have to do is thank the people who put this conference together. Of course, the organizing committee deserves our utmost thanks, and not all of them are here, but I hope that this gratitude of all those who are here now and were here can be transmitted to them. But that would be Ani Abrahamian, Heather Asiala, Jessica Barron, Jessica Hellman, Rachel Novick, Susie Spitzer, and Robin Darling Young. I'm especially grateful to my theology colleague, Robin, who invited me into this about a year and a half ago, dreaming about it. I'm glad that the Center for Social Concerns was able to partake in a small way in helping to sponsor it. I think this conference was incredibly well organized. 3 days, each one dedicated to the scientific issues surrounding climate change. Second day about moral reflection associated with climate change, and the third hoping to create effective political action in relationship to climate change. Each of those three elements, science, moral reflection, and practical action, are necessary. None of them by itself is sufficient to address this complex question. Two quick stories. One is, both are kind of disheartening. One, I once met a Notre Dame graduate who was an attorney who described in great detail to me how he worked on behalf of his multinational corporation to defend it in lawsuits that were attacking this corporation's business models and their products, which damaged the environment. And he talked about how he sponsored scientific articles and helped write them with the scientists so that they would play well in court. Now maybe this is, I was a younger person then, so I was sort of horrified by this. Second kind of disturbing moment happened. I happened to be on a lecturer with Michael McElroy, who was mentioned earlier as a Harvard climate scientist. This is in the 90s, and Michael McElroy, during our trip, we were in Angkor Wat, missed seeing Angkor Wat because he was on the phone with Al Gore, planning what became the Kyoto Protocols, later abrogated by the government, the Bush administration. But I remember that because after that trip, which was with high-end Notre Dame donors and others, benefactors of major universities, one of those benefactors, who was a former Exxon executive, wrote a letter to all participants on that journey, undermining and attacking Michael McElroy, whose lectures, I had been lecturing on comparative religions. His lectures were on climate science. This is in the late 90s. He talked about carbon output from China. He was a remarkable speaker and presenter, a bit dry but compelling just because of the portents that he was able to present before us. And I was just struck by how easy it is for science to be denied and undermined by people who aren't really interested in the well-being of everyone. That was a very disturbing lesson for me, and it makes me all the more grateful for the work that went into a conference like this one. As an Africanist, I study African peoples and religions. I am very mindful that the worst places where disasters have happened in Africa of a human sort, Rwanda and Somalia, are also two of the most degraded local environments due to overpopulation and overgrazing on the one hand and desertification in the other. And I think it behooves all of us to be mindful of the way global climate change will create and continue to create atrocity-producing situations in our world. It is in all of our interests to help reduce situations that produce atrocity. And global climate change threatens to create all the more situations that are atrocity producing, in my opinion. Finally, just one last thing. Much of this tone of the conference takes on what religious people would call an apocalyptic tone. And I think that's of necessity. The scale of the problem is so great. The resources needed to combat it seem so many and so difficult to amass. My sense is we are in some ways in an opposite situation to 9/11, which was not an apocalyptic event, but which was experienced as an apocalyptic experience by many people. My sense is the only apocalyptic event of the last millennia might be the encounter of the Columbus with the New World, in which 75% of the New World population was gone in 100 years. That's the only apocalyptic, world-ending event of the last 7 or 8 centuries. Global climate change threatens to become an apocalyptic event of that magnitude, but very slow moving. So too were the effects of the Columbian encounter for those who experienced them. It was not immediately that 8 million people disappeared from Hispaniola, or the most densely populated part of the world, Mexico City, became almost entirely depopulated. It took some decades. This might take some centuries, but the implications are equally grave. The challenge for all of us, I think, is to make sure that people are aware of the apocalyptic nature of the scope of the problem and respond with all the resources we can muster. That's my prayer, that this conference, which had so many great speakers, thanks to all of you, was attended by lots of people from lots of different perspectives and disciplinary foci, might muster the kind of energy to face the scale of what we face. Again, thanks to Robin, Ani, Rachel, Jessica, Susie, and Heather. Thanks to the McKenna Center for hosting us, and thanks to all the great speakers who share with us your wisdom and your hard work. And thanks for all the hard work that made those great presentations possible. Thanks so much.